Okay, so I wanted to do a video on this about I Am a Loho. She was talking about how she thought that Megan the Stallion didn't experience colorism, but rather featureism or heightism. Well, it's very weird to me, two things. Let's start off with the first two things and then I'll get into the third one. So, first off, people always act like Megan Thee Stallion looks mixed, which is weird. Looks black. Which is weird to me because if you look at her, look at Nicki Minaj, look at Rihanna, look at Ciara too. People definitely say Rihanna and Nicki Minaj look mixed. Yet their features are much broader than Megan Thee Stallion's features. Megan Thee Stallion only gets width in her features due to makeup. Without makeup, her features aren't that broad, especially compared to Rihanna's. Somehow she has an unambiguous black woman's phenotype, but Rihanna doesn't, and they're about the same color as well. This is why people always say that Rihanna bleaches, because she has the same range, basically. If you really want to know. Okay, so I know because I'm around the same color as both of these individuals, depending on the sun exposure and what region of the country I'm in. And anyway, a 330 in Fenty is equivalent to a 322 in Maybelline, basically. And Megan Thee Stallion is about a 335 in Maybelline. So that's not very far, and that's not really that different. It's maybe like 2 shades darker, basically. So they basically overlap. Considering Rihanna isn't a 330 in Fenty all year long, she's more like 330, I think, at her lightest shade, and she gets darker. She can get darker than a 370, but they say that's her range, 330 to 370 in Fenty. 370 is equivalent to a 330 in Maybelline, which is the shade lighter than 335, which is Megan Thee Stallion's color. You can see in these photos that Megan Thee Stallion is around the same shade as Nicki Minaj. Maybe she's a shade darker, but it's very bare minimum. So I really find it weird to say that Megan Thee Stallion suffers from featureism or colorism when she's the same color as these women and she's arguably, by these people's standards, light-skinned. She's not light-skinned because Rihanna isn't light-skinned, Nicki Minaj isn't light-skinned, Ciara isn't light-skinned, and Beyonce is definitely not light-skinned. But these people tend to want to believe that these type of people have that skin tone. But my point in making this video is to say, why is it just because someone said that someone was a man that now they're an unambiguous black woman who is darker skinned? They did this with Nicki Minaj too. They focus on Megan Thee Stallion and say, oh, why is there such a hate train for Megan Thee Stallion? But Nicki Minaj had the same hate train. The only difference is, I guess you could say, nowadays, Nicki Minaj does try to maintain, I guess, a lighter complexion, somewhat. you can still see that her skin tone pops right out sometimes because she tans very easily, just like Megan Thee Stallion. They both tan very quickly and very easily and very strongly, you know. And this is why people used to say that Nicki Minaj was brown too. She just is her natural color more often, so now people call her light skinned. And it would be the same thing for Megan Thee Stallion. When Megan Thee Stallion has no tan, she's a 335, and Maybelline, that's literally like half a shade lighter than a paper bag, so she technically passes. So people would still call her light skinned too. That's what the whole red bone thing is all about. So to me, it's kind of weird. Anytime someone's associated with negativity, they're considered brown. Anytime they're associated with positivity, they're light skinned. You see this with Nicki Minaj, you see this with Rihanna, you see this with Ciara, and how they constantly called her a man, so she was forever considered brown skinned, even though she's the same skin tone as these women. Same thing with Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion constantly has these negative associations with masculinity, so then they basically say she's brown skinned, even though you can see in photos she's basically the same shade as Nicki Minaj. Yet Nicki Minaj, when people consider her feminine, she's light skinned. When people call her transgender, she becomes brown skinned. And all these women have been attacked for the same thing. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about was, it's so funny, people will be like, oh, she's a black woman. But Rihanna's not a black woman. Or Nicki Minaj is not a black woman. Yet they all have a mixed parent. At least, I believe Megan Thee Stallion might be full-blooded Creole. So she might be mixed on both sides of her family. Yet because someone called her a man, she's no longer mixed, she's no longer light-skinned, she's a black woman who's dark-skinned. The reason this is because you guys have such a vehement, strong idea of associating dark with bad and bad with dark. So automatically, if someone is light-skinned or if someone is brown-skinned and someone is being attacked, they must not be brown-skinned or light-skinned anymore. They're just dark-skinned, Some people will make them brown-skinned in some cases when they understand they can't be dark-skinned. That's what the tweet was all about. Someone was trying to make her dark-skinned because they were saying negativity associated with her made her dark-skinned. So you see this sometimes where negative energy is given to an individual without dark skin, and somehow they're supposed to grow dark skin just because negative energy was thrown at them. So weird. I mean, your color is your color, whether someone is negative or positive to you. Whether you're ugly or pretty, whether you look like a man or a woman, you are your color no matter what. So a color is just a color. It's not a status. It's not being better than anyone. It's none of those things. It's just a fucking color. But people don't pay attention to that when they are so stuck in, oh, you don't want to associate bad with light, so we associate it with dark kind of thing. Such self-hate when it's the dark-skinned black people implementing this idea themselves. And then they wonder why colorism is a supposed issue. Well, colorism is in your head, sweetie, and you implement it on yourself every day, and that's why you have the issues you have. This is a great example of it. Also, on to another topic. The whole thing of hate towards Megan Thee Stallion, hate towards Nicki Minaj, hate towards Rihanna, hate towards Ciara, masculinization of these women, calling these women fake, calling them ugly, all the things that were associated with these women's phenotypes, especially Nicki Minaj. When Nicki Minaj first came out, goodness, the hate was crazy. But anyway, seeing all those people, And somehow, people will always try and say that if they were dark skinned, it would be so much worse. But you see dark skinned black people, like Kelly Rowland, for example. Does anyone call her a man? No. I've never heard anyone really hate her that deeply, you know? If anything, people might ignore people, but that's just a matter of someone not being successful enough. But if it was really just that dark skin made it worse, then how come we don't see worse? Oh, yeah, this is what I mean about colorism also. They say that these are the things that happen to dark-skinned black women and the hardships they go through. But you see how I Am Aloho tried to belittle the things that Megan Thee Stallion goes through and the hate that she receives. Because she can't claim it as a dark-skinned black woman who deals with it as colorism to fulfill her idea of colorism existing. She basically tries to belittle how her experiences are and try to say if she was dark skinned, it would be worse. To always hold the idea that dark skinned black women need to have more protection. Dark skinned black women's struggle is worse. They need to focus on their struggle more, basically, because they don't want to include other women who struggle just the same as them and have the same kind of hate as that. That's what I don't get. Why is it okay to silence and try and act like belittle misogynoir of black women who are light or brown skinned? Simply because it doesn't feed into the colorism aspect, basically. But in reality, that's what I mean when I say that colorism silences black women. Because all it does is it silences the racism and the misogynoir that black women go through and only puts a focal point on misogynoir experienced by dark-skinned black women when brown-skinned black women experience the same thing and light-skinned black women experience the same thing, if not more, because it's more acceptable because people think people can get away with it in Megan Thee Stallion's case because they're like, well, that's not even a dark-skinned black woman, so you can't even fault me for that. You see, you're giving freebies to people to have misogynoir, but of course these people don't care because they only care about the well-being of dark-skinned black women, but they don't realize how they're actually minimizing their voice because they're only letting dark-skinned black women speak on this issue and shadowing and minimizing the issues that other black women experience when most black women aren't even dark skinned. Most black women have a phenotype like Nicki Minaj, like Rihanna, like Ciara, like Megan Thee Stallion. They're silencing most black women and the most popular phenotype of black women. So that's all I have to say in this video. I just think it's wrong, obviously, and, it's egocentric and narcissistic to say other black women can't express how people have shown them the same hate as dark-skinned black